It's a good world. Good world going bad.
Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. What if I told you that the 5-year period between 2008 and 2012, we had less than 400,000 foreclosure sales and slightly over 1 million foreclosure starts. Now, I've been hearing multiple bulls push disinformation stating that we had 3 million foreclosures in 2010 or 2019, and then that was available for inventory. And so today, what I'm going to do, you guys, is help you understand why people are saying that. In essence, guys, bulls are saying that and pushing disinformation to continue to get you to spend your money, because that's how our society works. If we stop spending money, everything falls apart. And so on top of the February data, because we have an update from Black Knight, we're going to go over all of the updated stats on foreclosures. I'm also going to compare what's going on right now compared to the GFC. And I'm also going to analyze over 350,000 homes right now that are still in lockdown or COVID forbearance, and the fact that those plans, those forbearance plans, are swiftly starting to deteriorate, as I warned you guys about a couple months ago. So it's going to be a very comprehensive video today. And don't forget, you guys, back in 2008, they also had foreclosure moratoriums. So I hope that this is going to be extremely revealing. And I'm going to give you guys a clue right now, okay? Bigger part of the reason for the GFC was investors, not subprime loans. Subprime loans were about 20% or less of the total loans, you guys. It was the prime borrowers that really had a bigger impact. And those prime borrowers, again, were mostly investors. And a lot of those investors were purchasing real estate based on fraudulent premises. Isn't that what's going on right now? Isn't that what's going on right now? Take a look at the data. Okay, guys, so here's our February summary statistics right here. And I'm going to go over this pretty quickly. Now, delinquencies in February 2024 are historically low. But again, remember, we still have over 350,000 people that are not even counted on this information. And I'll show you that here in a second. Now, the monthly changes down, yearly changes down as well as year to date. Now, this is down 3% year over year. Foreclosures are down month over month and year over year as well. Year over year, big drop in foreclosures, sitting at 0.4%. So all of these trends so far, you guys, in February are actually for the better. January was really, really bad as far as starts, but this is kind of flipped in February. You can see foreclosure starts sitting at 24,700. That's a monthly change of negative 27% and a yearly change of negative 16%. So a lot of these people are probably starting to sell their houses. Now, serious delinquencies of 90 days or plus are at 1.25%. That's a monthly change of negative 2.8% and a yearly change, massive drop of 17.79%. Very interesting, you guys. Very, very interesting indeed. Now, when we look at this chart right here, this is also very interesting because we see that February of last year, we were sitting at 290, and then it went up. Now, look at the total delinquency percentage. Here's the year over year. So right now we're at 3.35. Last year we're at 3.45, but look at March. So March last year it went down and then it went up. So it's going to be interesting to see if March of this year, will we have the same trends? When this comes out with March data, do you guys think that foreclosures are going to be lower? Do you think they're going to be higher? Because the reality is there's two different types of people at foreclosure risk, okay? There's the people that purchased before 2022 and there's the people that purchased after 2022. If you purchased before 2022, you're probably in really good shape, really low interest rate, right? Comparatively, you probably have a ton of equity, and although a lot of people are starting to refinance that equity, so it's way different. A lot of people that purchase 2022 and on, they don't have equity and they have much higher interest rates, and so they are at a way bigger risk of foreclosure. And I'm going to tell you guys the biggest thing, okay? It doesn't matter. Basically, it doesn't matter what your interest rate is. It doesn't matter how much equity you have. If you lose your job, you will lose your house. It doesn't matter what those things are. All right, take a look at the top and bottom states right here. Starting with the bottom states, obviously Mississippi's in the worst shape, sitting at a 7.3% delinquency rate. That's more than double the national average being 3.3. Louisiana's also double the national average, sitting at 6.8%. Alabama sitting at 5.5%. It's very interesting. They're all, very close to each other. Arizona 4.8, Indiana 4.6. Now the bottom states, number one bottom state is somehow Colorado at 1.9, and then Washington 1.9, Idaho at 2, California at 2.1, Montana at 2%. It's crazy to me that they're all located next to each other. The bottom and the top are almost all right next to each other. Why do you guys think that is? Comment below. Now what I want to do is I want to compare the foreclosure situation on basically what's going on right now compared to the GFC. And I want you guys to understand, I am not saying there wasn't a foreclosure crisis during the GFC. I know there was a foreclosure crisis because I'm old enough to have gone through it and I had my own foreclosure. So I know that. The point I'm trying to make here is basically the amount of disinformation from these bulls is overwhelming. And I want you guys to understand there wasn't a surge of 3 million units for sale. That never happened. There was roughly 4 million filings during that period of time. But understand, you guys, a filing is very far from being inventory. People could still get out of the foreclosure. They can set up a loan modification. People forget about that. A lot of foreclosure filings ended up being loan modifications. So we didn't have that 3-4 million inventory blow up, okay? But on top of that, short sales were also huge. Again, I'm not saying there wasn't a foreclosure problem. There was. But what I am saying is be careful of that push, that narrative that we need, millions and millions of inventory to have a balanced housing market back. The people say that because they want you to continue to spend and spend and spend until it's exhausted and everything collapses like it always does. But regardless, let's take a look at some statistics so I can show you what I'm talking about. All right, y'all. So here's all the foreclosure information from the year of 2000 to February of 2024. And what I want to do, guys, is I want to circle some data for 2009. Okay, so right here's 2009, and here's 2009, and here's 2009. Now, what I want to point out is, let me zoom in on this. Okay, so I've circled data from 2000. Okay, that's as much as I can zoom in, but I've circled data from 2009. Now, yes, we had a horrible non-current epidemic. Okay, we had a non-current crisis. Okay, 7.7 million people were non-current, but that could be 30 days. And so on top of that, what I want you guys to understand is maybe we didn't have these millions and millions of foreclosure inventory, but buying demand was slaughtered, because that's 8 million people that I circled right there that no longer have purchasing power. If you have just one late payment, you're dead in the water. But the amount of foreclosure starts, okay, so the filings were right here. Okay, so there were about 2 million filings. Again, someone said 3 million. I don't know where these people are getting this info, but foreclosure filings, again, way different, about 2 million in 2009. And of which only about 10% foreclosure was even started. You see that here. And out of that amount, less than half were even sold. You guys, in 2009, we didn't have 3 million homes up for sale that were in foreclosure. We had 230 homes that had just started that process. Think about that. Think about that. And I'm telling you that because what I'm saying is, we don't need a lot of inventory. Prices right now have been built up so heavily on emotion, speculation, and the biggest thing, lack of inventory. So when we have that void of inventory filled, things will change, and they will change drastically. Now, when I add all these up, guys, when I take 2008, okay, so 2008 to 2012, okay, so I'm taking all this data right here. So those are 5 years of data, okay? And I add all of that up, all right? The total amount of homes that had a foreclosure start was slightly over 1 million in 5 years, not 3 million in 1 year. Now, the total amount of homes that were actually sold that went through that whole foreclosure process was only 373,500. So remember that number, okay? The entire half decade, 373 homes. Now take a look at this, guys. This is what I'm wondering, okay? I'm wondering about these people. You guys. This is about 300 and looks like 26K. So right now, okay, remember, during that 5-year period, during that 5-year period was 373. But look at this, guys. Don't forget, we've already had 8.9 million foreclosures or forbearances. So we had 8.9 forbearances. And yet we didn't have this horrible housing market crash because there was moratorium. And I'm going to show you the 2008 moratorium here in a minute. But look at this, 326,000 families that cannot get out of foreclosure. Okay, that's 326,000. They've been in there for years. They cannot get out. So my question is what would happen if all 326,000 of those units went up on the market to be sold? Wouldn't that create some type of price decline in the areas that are heavy on foreclosures? Because don't forget, foreclosure sales drastically reduce the values in subdivision. It takes 2 foreclosure sales, technically 1, to change the entire pricing dynamic of a subdivision. So remember, right now, we still have these 326,000 homes. And when we look at the performance, okay, when we look at the performance of those 320,000 homes, take a look at this, guys. Look at the trajectory of performance since November of 2023 to current. Look at that trajectory, okay? This is the performance. These blue little lines right here is the performance. Look at the trajectory. Again, in just 4 months, the trajectory has gone from about a success rate of about 60% all the way down to about under 30%. That is a 50% drop in performance in just 4 months. Look at the trajectory, you guys. Again, the whole propping up and the forbearances and the lockdown stuff, that's gone. So what's going to happen to those people? Because we can see here, okay, they're probably not going to make it. It's not performing. And they've had principal reduction, they've had interest rate reduction, they've had payment reduction, and they still can't make their payments. That's something to keep your eyes on. Now, on top of that, guys, take a look at the foreclosure inventory. And what they should say is foreclosure notices, but that's okay. And what I want to point out is what happened right before recession. Don't forget, you guys, now I've circled right here, okay? This is about when recession started. Okay, so everyone's like, oh, the house market's not going to crash. It's fine. Just keep buying. But we haven't started a recession. If we were in recession right now and we still had the growth that we have, all right, maybe it'll just be a frozen housing market, balanced for quite some time. But my thing is like, dude, like they're making this whole situation worse by the deficit spending, by the whole lack of caution, the over optimism. And the same thing happened during the GFC. Look at how low the foreclosures were going into recession, okay? Foreclosures were almost as low as what they are right now. They're not as low. I'm saying almost as low. It took the recession, which I'm circling right here, for foreclosures to kick up. And I want you guys to think about how that essentially happened overnight. Look at the trajectory. So people in 2007 were saying, oh, record low foreclosures. Home prices only go up, even though during the Great Depression, home prices went down 25%. So they had that, but they chose not to look at that. It took the recession, you guys. It took the recession because the recession brought with it job loss and credit tightening. Again, I'm not debating that there wasn't a horrible foreclosure crisis. I went through it myself, so you can't take that away from me. For me, it was as bad as it could be for anyone because I've lost everything. But my point is understand that things can happen suddenly and they can happen overnight. And by that time, all of the bulls that are saying, oh, we need this much foreclosures here and there, they're completely useless. If you can't see what's coming and you can't adapt and prepare for it, then your advice is useless. If you're just saying the same thing, even though the environment right now is different than it was 3 years ago, you're hurting people. And don't forget, you guys, they also put rates in the 3% and foreclosure moratorium during the GFC, which didn't help because the most important thing about all of this doesn't matter your interest rate, doesn't matter your equity. It matters if you have a job. And so if we have job loss, things will crumble for sure. It always does. Take a look at this. All right, this is an article from CNN dated all the way back to November 20th, 2008. And look at the headline, you guys. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac suspend foreclosures. Did y'all know that? Did you all know they had moratorium during the GFC? I bet you didn't, but comment below whether or not you knew that. Mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have directed their network of servicers to halt all foreclosure and eviction proceedings November 26, 2008 to January 9th, 2009. Now, that was extended to the end of January of 2009. Very, very interesting. Now, take a look at this, you guys. The reason why they did that is because on top of that, the U.S. unveils a mortgage plan. And this is really the birth of loan modification. So a lot of the people that were troubled back during the GFC, they didn't necessarily have their home sold as a foreclosure. A lot of those people, again, you got to be careful of this disinformation. There's so much disinformation from these charlatans and people acting to be like good people. Meanwhile, they're selling their channel, they're turning their channel into crypto, they're lying to you, they're charging you money. The reality is, you guys, we've already done this before. It's just these little kids have never been through anything like this, and so they're just talking out of their emotions, out of their mouth. They don't understand how quickly this can happen. Look at this. U.S. unveils mortgage plan. The Bush administration on Tuesday unveiled a new program to modify mortgages and stabilize the battered real estate market. But the plan stopped short of providing direct government financial help to at-risk homeowners. Well, all of that has been pulled forward through lockdowns. So a lot of the people that would need help have already got it. But isn't that interesting, y'all, that they've already done this before? And so my question for the viewers is this. And so in 2009, during one of the worst times of the recession, okay, we started at the beginning of 2008, the deficit spending, and this was the highest year of deficit spending, was 1.42 trillion. They spent 1.42 trillion to keep the US afloat, and it still didn't work. And if we fast forward to 2023, before recession, they spent 1.7 trillion. So isn't it fair to say, if it wasn't for the deficit spending, wouldn't we already be in recession? And wouldn't that recession create job loss? And wouldn't that job loss create foreclosures? Isn't this very interesting? And so that's why I'm saying, you guys, it's almost like what's happening right now is the reverse of what happened last time. Now, I want to read this as well, you guys, because this is a report from NBER that is basically saying, hey, if you guys thought that the housing market crashed last time because of subprime, you're wrong. The primary reason why, obviously subprime helped, but the primary reason was investors, not subprime loans, although the subprime loans did contribute to it. Let me read this, you guys. One 2017 NBER study argued that real estate investors were more to blame for the crisis than subprime borrowers. The rise in mortgage defaults during the crisis was concentrated in the middle of the credit score distribution, so people that had good credit, and mostly attributed to real estate investors. And that credit growth between 2001 and 2007 was concentrated in the prime segment. And also debt to high-risk subprime borrowers was virtually constant for all debt categories during this period. And it's also important to note, you guys, again, only about 20% of the loans were even FHA to begin with. Most of the purchasing out there, and you guys can see this, was investors. Investors were purchasing during the great financial crisis like crazy, okay? And the economist Robert Shiller argued that speculative bubbles, again, investors purchasing, are fueled by contagious optimism, seemingly impervious to facts. Isn't that what's happening right now? You guys, this was during the GFC. That often takes hold when prices are rising. Bubbles are primarily social phenomena. Until we understand and address the psychology that fuels them, they're going to keep forming. Now, as far as the social implications, look at this. The same thing happened last time. It says the entire American public eventually was caught up in the belief that housing prices could not fall drastically. And so, in other words, I hope you guys are safe. And there's a reason why it's called a collapse. It's called a collapse because it happens suddenly and many things are impacted. In essence, it's like a domino effect, right? And so again, you guys, here's the thing. It's your life. It's your money. If you want to go buy a house right now, so be it. I put in an offer already this year, but I'm using data. I'm looking for homes with wedge, with cash flow, and I'm willing to walk away on a drop of a dime. And the same thing with my clients. And in fact, we need more realtors to help their clients walk away versus overbidding. I mean, the industry is partially responsible here, but regardless, you guys, if you want some more information on foreclosures, Zillow has foreclosures listed. If you are experiencing any type of hardship, call your servicer. You probably will want to call your servicer or your lender to set up any type of forbearance plan or something of that nature. I don't want people to go in foreclosure. This video was to explain to you how you have to be careful for narratives and disinformation. Although there was a crisis, most of the crisis went through loan modification or short sales or other things of that nature versus 3 million foreclosures hitting the market suddenly. I mean, literally, you guys, during a 5-year period, we only started filing the starts on 1 million. That's it. So be careful who you're listening to. Now, other than that, if you guys are out there investing in real estate, you guys know that I wish you luck and I hope you win.